and a very warm welcome to the Analyst dated 31st May 2026, brought to you by Vajiram and Ravi, wherein we'll be looking into the 7 set of current affairs issues which have featured in today's newspaper. The handout of this very discussion has been pinned in the comment section below for your future reference. Now, beginning with the analysis section, in the first topic, we'll try and assess the obesity challenge which is being faced by India. In this respect, we'll try and understand the causes, its impact, and the steps taken by the government in this respect, and what more needs to be done in order to realize the idea of Fit India. Moving on to the second topic, herein we'll try and understand the evolving dynamics of India-Myanmar relation. What are the areas of cooperation? What are the recent challenges that we are witnessing between the two countries? And how India can strengthen its strategic ties with one of its neighboring nations. Moving on to the prelim pointer segment, herein we'll be covering the 5 set of current affairs issues which are relevant from the prelims perspective. So we'll be doing the value addition which would be relevant for your prelims examination. So stay tuned. Now, beginning with the first topic, which is dealing with the challenge of obesity, which is on a rise in India. On what basis am I saying this? I'm saying it on the basis of National Family Health Survey 6, whose results are now in the public domain. Now, when it comes to this National Family Health Survey 6, it has clearly pointed out that obesity is on a rise. When you talk about men or when you talk about women, we have witnessed an increase among both of them. And obesity is on a rise, especially when it comes to the southern states, that is Andhra Pradesh, Kerala and Tamil Nadu. That is the reason we need to understand this obesity challenge which is being faced by India. And one more prelim fact that you need to note is that when it comes to National Family Health Survey, this is carried out by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare in collaboration with International Institute for Population Sciences, which is situated in Mumbai. Now, this particular topic we can associate with GS paper 2, issues related to health. Now, first thing that we need to understand is what is this obesity? So, according to WHO, obesity is defined as abnormal or excessive accumulation of fat that possess the health risk. Now, if you are obese, then there are high chances that you will be witnessing type 2 diabetes, okay? And that has been highlighted in this particular article also, that if a person accumulates more excess fat, then that person becomes more vulnerable to type 2 diabetes. Now, when it comes to obesity, it is basically determined based on your BMI index, that is body mass index. And how do we calculate this BMI index? You calculate it by dividing a person's weight in kilograms, and the weight would be divided by the height in meter square, okay? So if your BMI index is 30 or more than 30, that means you are falling in the category of obese. Now, when it comes to this National Family Health Survey 6, as we discussed right now, that we have witnessed an increase in obesity when you talk about men or when you talk about women, okay? And you will be astonished to know that this obesity is not just a problem associated with the adult members. No, it is emerging as a problem among the children also. And this has been highlighted by this year World Obesity Atlas, which pointed out that more than 41 million children in India are either overweight or they fall in the obese category. And you will be astonished to know that India is second in this particular respect. We are just behind China when it comes to the number of children with high BMI index. So this was the data fact with respect to obesity. Now let's try and understand that what is the cause? Why we are witnessing a rising instances of obesity among the Indian population? First and the foremost reason is the sedentary lifestyle that we people have. We have to sit for long hours. When you are working, you have to sit for around 8 to 10 hours every day. And because of the emerging work culture nowadays, sedentary lifestyle is not something which an individual can control actually. Okay, they have to put in a lot amount of working hours. So long sitting hours are there, excessive screen time is there, and minimal movement is there in the daily routine. Okay, you must have seen when you travel from metros also, you must have seen very few people actually using the staircase. Okay, a lot of them use lift only, because after we are done with the office, we don't have that much of energy left that we can take the staircase, that you should be doing actually. Then one of the major reason is the rising processed food and the increasing access to processed food, and this is becoming more and more accessible when it comes to the school going children. Okay, so when it comes to this junk food or processed food, it would give you the necessary amount of calories, okay, but it would be low when it comes to the nutrition content. And this is actually leading to a shift in the dietary patterns of the Indian population. So we are shifting from nutritious traditional foods to processed foods, which are calorie dense. Then there is growth of ultra processed food industry, which is one of the major reason why the obesity is a real challenge now. This sector has witnessed a growth of almost 13%, okay, between 2011 to 2021. And if this sector is growing, obviously there would be, the junk food would be available at a lower cost. Higher accessibility to junk food is also there, and that is adding to the obesity challenge. Then urbanization and income rise. Urbanization means that you will be having a sedentary lifestyle. Now in the urban areas, because of the congestion and all, you see very limited green areas or parks where the children can actually go and play, okay? And that is the reason why the children are ending up spending more amount of time when it comes to the screens. And when your income level rises, it becomes easier for you to access the junk and the ultra processed foods. Then there is limited awareness when it comes to what constitute a healthy diet. So when it comes to these junk foods, they would give you the necessary amount of calories, but they'll not give you the necessary micronutrients which are needed for proper functioning of your body. But we don't have that much of information. And when it comes to the junk foods which are available in the market, if you try to read what all elements are there, okay, I came across a short reel wherein a person was telling that there are 2 Lay's ka packets. In one they have used the palm oil, and in another one they use another oil. But to get to know this thing, that which kind of oil they have used, there were a lot of instructions, and it is difficult for a common man to actually decode that. We don't have that much of time also. So the Food Safety and Standard Authority of India guidelines, when it comes to clearly listing down that what all ingredients have been put in, that is not being effectively being followed, okay? So there is issue when it comes to its implementation also, as health being a state subject. Then earlier, what was the conception that we have? That excess weight is a sign of prosperity. Okay, in North India, you must have heard this saying that if you are slim, okay, it is considered that you don't belong to a prosperous family. You are not getting enough amount of food. So that was the original conception that we have in the Indian society. And due to this, we delay the recognition of obesity as a challenge. This is also one of the reasons. Then, currently, when you talk about the healthy food, the nutrition dense foods like fruits, vegetables, milk, etc., that is out of reach of the poor people. But when you talk about the junk foods like samosas, etc., that is readily available to everyone. And that is the reason now obesity is not just among the richer families, it is now emerging as a challenge among the poor population as well. Now, how it is going to impact the society at large? Firstly, it is going to have impact on the individual health. If you have excess fat in your body, you become more vulnerable to non-communicable diseases, which are actually a silent killer. And as WHO has clearly pointed out, that if a person is obese, then there are high chances that a person would be affected by type 2 diabetes. Okay, because your body would be witnessing a condition called insulin resistance, which make it harder to regulate the blood sugar levels. It is going to impact the child development, cognitive development especially. Why? Because these junk or ultra processed foods are going to give enough amount of calories to the children, but it would not provide the necessary nutrients, micronutrients, which are very much essential for its cognitive development. Then it is also going to have psychological impact. Obese people are the ones who face body shaming, and some actually end up ending their life also. There's a case from Chennai wherein a 17-year-old boy who used to go to the school witnessed the instances of body shaming and ultimately ended his life. So when it comes to obesity, it also have a psychological impact also. It lowers down their self-esteem also. You don't feel confident, okay, when you are not in good shape. Then it also have economic impact, because if you have accumulated more amount of fat, your body becomes vulnerable to catch more non-communicable diseases, and if that happens, then ultimately there would be productivity loss. You will not be more efficient when it comes to your work, and you will not be able to contribute effectively to the corporation in which you are working. And ultimately, you might have to bear a higher healthcare cost as well. Then it also put immense pressure when it comes to the already strained healthcare system, public healthcare system. Because when it comes to the public healthcare system, we don't have enough amount of nutritionists or the people who can tell you that what is a healthy diet actually looks like. And if because of this obesity, there would be rising instances of non-communicable diseases, it is going to put immense pressure on the already fragile public health ecosystem which is there. Then it also have generational burden. If let's suppose I being a mother, if my food habits are not good, it would ultimately get passed to my child. My child would also inherit the same bodily complexity, okay, at a later date. So that is another challenge. Now, let's look into what all steps the government is taking in this respect to effectively deal with this obesity challenge. So, we have the program wherein we are trying to tackle certain non-communicable diseases like cancer, diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, stroke, etc., wherein we are focusing upon early screening, and this would ensure that we intervene at an early stage. Okay? And we can check the obesity related risk factor from becoming more and more complicated. Then we have Ayushman Bharat Health Wellness Center, wherein we are bringing behavioral change, okay, through communication, telling the people that what a healthy diet actually looks like. We are focusing upon aspects like hypertension, non-communicable diseases, and we are focusing upon overall wellness of an individual through various communication strategies. Then under the Poshan Abhiyan, which is now being renamed as National Nutrition Mission, so we are targeting both the children who are witnessing undernutrition and the children who are witnessing the problem of obesity. How? By bringing behavioral change when it comes to the eating habits of the children. And dietary intervention is also being made here. Then we have this Eat Right India movement, which is by Food Safety and Standard Authority of India, wherein we are telling to the people that what actually a healthy diet looks like. So we are promoting safe, healthy and sustainable food habits through various campaigns and social media outreach program. And under this, when it comes to the schools also, it has been told to the canteens that you have to come out with what all ingredients are there in whatever, food that you're providing, be it samosa, be it chips, everything, you need to come out with the details so that the consumer can make a right choice in this respect. Then we also have Fit India movement, wherein we are focusing upon the physical movement. Every individual should take up some or the other exercise, physical activity. So we have regular fitness challenges and campaigns in this respect. Basically, we are raising awareness in this respect. Then we have also this Food Safety and Standard Labeling and Display Regulation of Food Safety and Standard Authority of India, wherein it is mandatory for this companies which are providing us with ultra processed food that they have to mention the ingredients that they are using. They have to provide the nutritional information including fats, trans fat, salt, sugar content and added sugars, etc. So that a consumer can make a choice effectively in this respect that whether I should consume this particular product or not. Now, the last thing, what needs to be done to effectively tackle this obesity challenge which is on a rise when it comes to India? Firstly, we need to focus upon the awareness. We need to tell the people the importance of physical activity, and this is also for you UPSC aspirants also. We know when the examination approach, we tend to completely sideline the physical activity, yoga, meditation and all. Please don't do that. After all, it is an exam and nothing is above your life. Okay, so give at least half an hour to your body and to your soul and to your mind. Okay, so we need to focus upon more public health campaigns. We need to make the people aware the benefits when it comes to the healthy diet, what healthy diets actually looks like. There needs to be increased awareness in this respect, and especially there needs to be a targeted intervention when it comes to the schools. Okay. Then we need to improve the access to nutrient-rich food, because one of the problems that we discussed is when it comes to the poor people, how do you think they are going to access the nutrient dense food like fruits and vegetables. They don't have that much of money. So ultimately they end up consuming these junk processed foods. So the government should come forward and it should provide targeted cash transfers, vouchers for healthy foods and free healthy school meals. Okay, egg and all needs to be mandatorily included in the midday meal thing. Then for tackling obesity among the adults, every workplace should come up with yoga days. And under the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, we can incentivize the people living in a particular locality that you come forward and help us clean the parks and other green spaces which are there. This would add a little bit of exercise in their daily routine. Then we need to address the infrastructural issues. One of the problems that I discussed with you is, why are we witnessing this obesity as a challenge among the children also? Because urbanization is on a rise and there are very less green spaces. You have very few localities wherein you have a good playground, and this is the problem with schools also because of lack of space. And that is the reason children are not doing physical activity. I remember in my childhood, it was fixed that 1 hour we are supposed to go and play in the playground. But that is not taking place right now because of lack of green spaces. So this is something the government should look into and the school administration should look into. We need to create adequate playgrounds and green spaces so that the children can go out and play. Physical activity should be part of their daily routine. And that would in future encourage them to take up sports also as a career. And lastly, we need to disincentivize the ultra processed food industry. How? By increasing the taxes. And we need to give this guideline to this particular industry that instead of giving all the details at the back, print all the information in the front. And it should not be like you have created one sign and then I need to go and search that what the sign actually implies. The information when it comes to the nutrition labeling should be very clear. It should be comprehensible by a common man. Okay, so that is something we need to ensure so that we as consumers could make effective choices when it comes to our daily life, which is crucial for our health. That's it that we have to discuss when it comes to this particular topic. I have framed a practice question for you people. So based on the discussion that we have, please try and attempt this particular question. With this, let's move on to the next topic. Now, recently, the Myanmar president is on a 5-day visit to India. That is the reason we will be exploring, we'll analyze the India-Myanmar relation. This particular topic you can associate with GS paper 2, India and its neighborhood relations. Now firstly, let's look into the historical background of the two countries. We have cultural connectivity between the two nations. Why? Because of Theravada Buddhism, wherein Ashoka played a major role when it comes to spreading Buddhism in Myanmar. Then both the countries were part of British India, so both have witnessed the colonial rule. So that also strengthened the historical ties between the two countries. Then after independence, the two countries signed a treaty of friendship in 1951. And both the countries were founding members of non-alignment movement. And in 2014, India made Myanmar a part of its neighborhood first as well as Act East policy. Now, having understood the historical ties between the two countries, let's try and understand that why Myanmar is significant for India. First and foremost, Myanmar is important from geostrategic point of view. Why? Because Myanmar acts as a bridge between South Asia and Southeast Asia. And Myanmar is also relevant to increase our connectivity with the Northeast states. Okay, we don't want to be dependent upon the Chicken Neck corridor or the Siliguri corridor. We want to enhance our connectivity with the northeastern states, and in this Myanmar could play a major role. On what basis I'm saying this? I'm saying this based on the connectivity project that we have with Myanmar. First is the India-Myanmar-Thailand trilateral highway, wherein we are trying to develop road linkage. It would start from More, Manipur, and then it would go through Myanmar, and ultimately we will be having road linkage with the Thailand also. And when you talk about the Kaladan multimodal transport corridor, herein we are trying to connect the Kolkata port with the Swite port of Myanmar, and then ultimately it would be connected with the northeastern states of India. That way we'll be able to reduce our dependence when it comes to the Chicken Neck corridor or the Siliguri corridor. Now, Myanmar is also important from internal security point of view. Why? Because some of the insurgent groups from the northeast India, they have created safe havens in the dense and the forested terrain of Myanmar, Siang region as well as Ching state. And that is the reason the military of the two countries, they collaborated under Operation Sunrise to dismantle these camps. And another reason why Myanmar is important to deal with the internal security challenges of India is because of the influx of Rohingyas. After the military coup took place in 2021 in Myanmar, since then we are witnessing influx of Rohingyas. So to stop this, we need a stable Myanmar. Then Myanmar is also important to counter the Chinese influence, especially in the Indian Ocean region. So we have China-Myanmar Economic Corridor, wherein China is developing pipelines and deep sea ports at Chok Pyo, which would give Beijing direct contact to the Indian Ocean region, and this can create maritime security challenges for India. So to counter the Chinese presence in the Indian Ocean region, again we need to collaborate with the Myanmar. Then Myanmar is also important from energy security point of view of India. Why? Because Myanmar has huge offshore natural gas reserves. Example, Shui gas project, wherein the Indian public sector undertakings like the ONGC and GAIL are, operating this particular project, and this can help India reduce its gas imports. Now, what are the areas of cooperation between the two countries? First, if you look at the bilateral trade between the two countries, it was above $2 billion in 2024-25. And when you talk about India, we majorly export pharmaceuticals, semi-finished steel and heavy machineries. Then in the defense domain also, the two countries are collaborating. We have the joint military exercises like the IMBX. Then Operation Sunrise, we have already discussed how the military of two countries collaborated and we dismantled the camps, safe havens of the insurgent groups, which were from the northeastern India. Then the two countries are collaborating on various multilateral forums like ASEAN, BIMSTEC and Mekong Ganga Cooperation. On this, UPSC has already asked a question. Then we are providing targeted financial grants to the Myanmar so that we can restore the socio-economic stability in Myanmar. That would help us in reducing the, immigration of the Rohingya Muslims. So India is providing finance under the Rakhine State Development Program so that better housing projects, schools could be created. And we are trying to give a boost to local infrastructure. The intent is to restore the socio-economic stability in Myanmar. Then we are also collaborating in the area of education and research. So India has developed the Myanmar Institute of Information and Technology, an advanced center for agriculture, research and education, wherein we are doing the research when it comes to pulses and oilseeds. And India has always come forward whenever Myanmar has witnessed any natural calamity, be it Cyclone Mora, be it earthquake in Shan state, or be it COVID-19 pandemic. India is first to come and last to leave. Okay. So India has always provided humanitarian aid or disaster relief whenever Myanmar was struck by any natural disaster. But in the recent time, we are witnessing certain challenges which are emerging between the two states. And it is majorly because of the political unrest that we witnessed in the Myanmar because of the military coup that took place in 2021. So what happened? In 2020 election, the Aung San Suu Kyi National League for Democracy Party went with a massive vote. But the military there stated that there were electoral frauds. And ultimately, Aung San Suu Kyi as well as the people who were supporters of democracy in Myanmar, they were detained. And since then, we are witnessing instability in the state of Myanmar. Now, this has put India in a paradoxical situation, whether it should be driven by its own internal security interest or it should be a promoter of democracy and human rights in Myanmar. Because if we want to dismantle the safe havens created by the insurgent groups from the northeast India, we need to collaborate with the military of Myanmar. But if we do that, we are somewhere not able to, promote the idea of democracy as well as human rights in Myanmar. But if Indian government does that, if we are, promoting democracy, human rights there, then we might lose our favorable relation with the military junta there. So that is a paradoxical kind of situation which India is witnessing when it comes to India-Myanmar relation. Then the influx of refugees we have already discussed. Okay, that is Rohingya Muslims. And When it comes to India-Myanmar, we know that at the borders, tribal population lives. They have better ethnic as well as familial ties. So to, basically respecting those ties, what India and Myanmar entered into? They entered into free movement regime way back in 2018. What was this free movement regime? This respected the tribal, ethnic as well as familial ties between the tribes which are living across the border. So under this regime, tribes can enter into another country and they can travel up till 16 kilometer, and for this they don't need any visa. But later on what we figured out is that this free movement regime was actually being exploited by the criminals there, and this was being used to illegally transport the drugs, synthetic drugs, weapons, etc. So ultimately in 2024, Indian government took the decision that we would be stopping this free movement regime. And Indian government stated that we would be fencing the entire India-Myanmar border. Then another problem is the proximity to the Golden Triangle. Now this Golden Triangle consists of Myanmar, then you have Laos, and then you have Thailand. Because of this, drug trafficking incidents are on a rise in India, and it gets even complicated because of the porous border that we have between India and Myanmar. We have more than 1,600 kilometer border between India and Myanmar, and roughly 2% only is properly fenced. Although the government has stated that in the upcoming 10 years, we will be completely fencing the India-Myanmar border. But because of this, porous border, it becomes difficult to deal with illegal arms smuggling as well as drug trafficking. Then massive footprint of China because of the China-Myanmar economic corridor, wherein the China is providing immense amount of funding to the Myanmar, which is already cash strapped, and India is not able to match that pace. So ultimately, if India is not able to match the pace, and it is also because of the delayed implementation of the connectivity projects that we have, that is Kaladan multimodal project that we have. Because of this, what is happening? The Chinese footprint in Myanmar is increasing day by day. So that's another challenge. Then a new challenge which has emerged between India-Myanmar relationship is the cyber slavery. Now what is cyber slavery? Now youth is not able to get adequate employment opportunity. So they are being lured by fake job opportunities in the state of Myanmar or some other state. So when they enter into Myanmar, their documents are seized and they are made to forcibly carry out the cyber frauds, systematic cyber frauds. They are forced to do that because their documents are seized. And this is something that you can see that, Indians are becoming a victim of the cyber slavery. Various cyber networks are working, especially in the state of Myanmar in the Mayawadi region. So that is another challenge which is emerging between the two countries. Now, what is the way forward? How we can improve our relation with one of our strategic neighbor? First and foremost, we need to strengthen the people-to-people ties. How we can do this? By leveraging the spiritual diplomacy. We can deepen our ties with Myanmar by leveraging Theravada Buddhism connection that we have between the two countries. So under this, the government of India can subsidize the travel when it comes to the Buddhist circuits for the Myanmar nationals who intend to visit Bodh Gaya and Sarnath. So this would help us strengthen the people-to-people ties. Then we need to together target the cyber crime syndicates which are working in Myanmar. For this, the two countries should collaborate when it comes to high-level intelligence sharing, and joint police operation should also be carried out so that we can dismantle these cyber crime syndicates which are working in Myanmar, and at the same time we can locate and rescue our Indian nationals who are being subjected to cyber slavery. Then we need to engage with multiple stakeholders. The Indian government cannot just rely on the military there. We need to engage with the other stakeholders also who are promoter of human rights, who are promoter of democracy in the state of Myanmar. So we need to maintain amicable relation with the military government, but at the same time, we also need to come out as a promoter of democracy and human rights. That is something that India as a nation promotes. And for this, and to ensure that an effective peace plan is put in place when it comes to the state of Myanmar, we need to collaborate with the ASEAN nations for the same. And lastly, we need to improve the economic relation between the two countries. This would help us meet two objectives. Firstly, it would help us counter the Chinese influence, which is growing day by day in the state of Myanmar. And at the same time, it would also help us deal with the Rohingya crisis. If you restore the economic stability there, ultimately the refugee problem would be less. Okay? And for this, India need to fasten or expedite the implementation of the connectivity project, that is the Kaladan project, which is there. That's all that we need to know when it comes to this particular topic. I have framed a practice question for you people. So based on the discussion that we have, please try and attempt this particular question. With this, let's move on to the prelim booster segment. Now, beginning with the prelim pointer segment, the first article is dealing with the coal gasification technology. Let's try and understand that why India is pushing for this particular technology. This particular topic you can associate with the government policy segment. Now, under this coal gasification process, what we do, we convert the coal into syngas. Syngas majorly consists of your hydrogen plus the carbon monoxide. Now, the syngas would be further used to produce products like urea, methanol, ammonium nitrate, synthetic natural gas, hydrogen, ether, etc. Why are we focusing upon this particular technology? Because we have adequate amount of coal and we have adequate amount of lignite. Lignite is considered to be better for this coal gasification technique. Why? Because it has a porous structure, it is highly reactive, and at a low temperature it can be converted into gas. So this would help us adopt sustainable mining method when it comes to producing these downstream products, in which India has huge import dependency. So government is of this view that if we give a push to this coal gasification technology or this process, we will be able to reduce the import dependence, especially when it comes to urea, when it comes to ammonia, and when it comes to methanol, what we require in India. And the target that the government has set is that we will be gasifying 100 million tons of coal by 2030. So this year budget also, we have allocated money for this coal gasification process, and in 2024 also, money was allocated for this particular technique. And under this, the public sector undertakings are collaborating with private sector to exploit this particular process. But there are certain challenges when it comes to effectively tapping this particular process. What are the problems? Firstly, the coal that we have in India, it has high ash content. Now, when you have high ash content, less energy could be generated from this. So that is one problem. Then there is variability in the gross calorific value. Now, this gross calorific value measures that how much energy coal can produce. And if different kind of coal are giving us different gross calorific value, it becomes difficult to operate the coal gasification plant at an efficient level. Okay, so it would not be able to maintain a consistent gas output. Then complex mineral matters which are there in the coal, and during gasification process, what can happen that these minerals like silica, alumina, iron compounds, they can melt and they can form a slag, hard deposits, and they can block the equipments. So this would increase the maintenance cost further. Another problem is financial viability. Now, these coal gasification plants, these are capital intensive and they have a long gestation period also. And that is the reason in the latest, package, this year budget, the government is providing financial incentives to the entities which are coming forward to utilize this particular process. Herein, the government is providing financial incentives which is amounting to 1/5 of the plant and the machinery cost, because this plant and the machinery cost is around 30% of the total production cost. So the government is trying to make this entire process financially viable for the entities. And when it comes to the challenges that we discussed, we have high ash content when it comes to the coal which is available in India. That is the reason the experts say that fluidized bed gasification is a better technique, okay, for doing this coal gasification. Why? Because here we'll be utilizing a gas stream that would lift the coal out of the ash and thereafter gasifying it with heat. So it would be easier for us to segregate the coal and the ash. But at its maturing stage, we still need to import the high-end technology from China, because China is the leader when it comes to coal gasification technique, followed by Australia and US. And that is the reason the companies are making a request to the government that they should consider exemption from the provisions of the Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade when it comes to importing necessary technology, especially from China. What kind of technology? For example, what kind of specialized catalyst we can use which can fasten this entire process, the engineering designs which can make the equipment work better. Okay, and whatever operational challenges that we'll be witnessing. So that is all that we need to know when it comes to this particular topic. Let's move on to the next one. Now, recently, Supreme Court has reprimanded 3 states when it comes to the Chambal Gharial century, that is your Rajasthan, MP and Uttar Pradesh. Why? Because the court took suo motu cognizance of this particular thing, that illegal sand mining is taking place in this particular century, which is negatively impacting especially the Gharial population which is found in the Chambal region. And especially it has reprimanded the state of Rajasthan because it has followed a very lackadaisical approach when it comes to dealing with the illegal sand mining. Now, the sand mining was already prohibited in this Chambal century way back in 2006, but what we can see is ineffective implementation of the sand mining thing. Illegal sand mining is still continuing in this particular region, which is severely damaging the aquatic habitats, and it is threatening the environmental flow of the Chambal river, which is negatively impacting the freshwater dolphins, turtles as well as gharials. And in this region, we have witnessed that more number of dams have also come into picture. So the first dam which came up over Chambal river was the Gandhi Sagar dam, and later on various other dam projects have also come up, various irrigation projects have come up, which is again negatively impacting the biodiversity which is found in the Chambal region. Now, why do you think that illegal sand mining is still taking place, although it has been prohibited way back in 2006, especially when it comes to the Chambal century? The reason being, when it comes to the sand, we have a supply gap of around 40%, and that is the reason we are witnessing rising instances of illegal sand mining, especially in this Chambal area. This particular topic you can associate with the environment section of your prelims syllabus. Now, what we need to know from a prelims perspective is certain facts related to this particular century. Now, when you talk about the Chambal Gharial century, it is situated at the tri-junction of 3 states, that is MP, UP and Rajasthan. And it is India's first and the only tri-state protected riverine region century. It was established as a century in MP, okay? MP officially designated it as a century in 1978, and later all the other states also did that. Chambal River is the core riverine habitat for this protected area, and that is why the name of the century is also based on the Chambal River. When you talk about the flora which is found here, so it belongs to Kaithar Gir dry deciduous forest ecoregion. And when you talk about the fauna, one important fauna which is on which UPSC has also asked a question is the Gharial, which is critically endangered. Okay, it is found in ample quantity in this particular century. It is also an important bird area, and mugger crocodiles, smooth-coated otters, hyena, Indian wolves, Gangetic river dolphins and other freshwater turtles are also found, and that is the reason Supreme Court is concerned, okay, about this biodiversity, rich biodiversity that we have in this particular century. And that is the reason it reprimanded for the lackadaisical approach of states like Rajasthan. And recently, as we discussed, that illegal sand mining is emerging one of the biggest threat when it comes to the biodiversity which is found in this particular century, in this protected area. Now, based on this particular thing, as you can see, UPSC has asked a question in 2017. I know that you can give the answer to this particular question, so please let me know the answers in the comment section. With this, let's move on to the next topic. Now, recently, it has been pointed out that since from January this year, the European Union carbon border adjustment mechanism has come into picture. So there are high chances that now the companies in India would be complying, voluntarily they will be complying with the environmental, social and governance practices. Okay, they'll be voluntarily disclosing that what are the key businesses and how they are complying with the environmental laws which are there. Why the companies would be coming forward and they would be complying with this ECG framework? Because this would provide them the competitive advantage when it comes to the global market, because if they ensure that whatever production mechanism that they are using is environment friendly, so they will be able to sell their product at a lower price when it comes to markets of European Union nations. Okay. And if they comply, only then it would be easier for the authorities to trace this thing, that whatever information that they have provided, it is accurate or not. 72% of the Indian companies remain at the early stage of carbon readiness. That is what has been highlighted by the world of circular economy. Now, this particular topic becomes relevant for our economy point of view. Now, what is this ESG framework? Let's try and understand. Now, when it comes to the SEBI, it has made it mandatory for the top 1000 listed companies in India, based on their market capitalization, that they have to mandatory come out with this business responsibility and sustainability report, which is in alignment with this ECG framework only. What is market capitalization? It is basically the price of one share into the total number of shares which the company has issued. Okay. So through this, I can calculate the market capitalization. So based on market capitalization, whatever top 1000 listed companies are there in India, they have to comply with this ESG framework. Now, this term was coined in 2004 by former UN Secretary General, that is Kofi Annan. And this framework basically set a standard for the company's operation, that whatever operations they are carrying out, that should be, socially, it should leave a good impact on the society, and it should not be leading to any negative impact on the environment. So environmental criteria basically consider that how the operations of the company impact the environment. Social measures basically looks into this particular thing, that how the company is managing its relationship with its employees, suppliers, customers, and community where it is operating, carrying out its operations. And governance aspect basically deals with company's leadership, whether you have more women CEOs or not, executive pay, audits, internal control, and shareholder rights. Now, when it comes to this ESG reporting norms, how it evolved in India. So it started way back in 2009. At that time, it was voluntary. Okay, it was started by Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Then in 2012, SEBI made it mandatory that the top 100 listed companies have to come up with the business responsibility report. Then it was extended to top 500 listed companies way back in 2015. And lastly, in 2019, the top 1000 listed companies based on market capitalization, it has become necessary for them that they have to come up with the ESG reporting norms. Business responsibility and sustainability report was introduced in 2021 on a voluntary basis, but it has been made mandatory, especially for the top 1000 companies from financial year 22-23. Now, one reason is European Union carbon border adjustment mechanism. This is incentivizing the entities in India that they should comply with the ESG framework. The another factor is if they want to take the benefit of carbon credit trading scheme, then also they need to comply with this particular framework. Only then they'll be eligible to get the benefits of carbon credit trading scheme. Now, this scheme was notified by Ministry of Power in 2023 under the Energy Conservation Act of 2001. And this was the scheme which actually led the foundation of Indian carbon markets, okay, by establishing an institutional framework wherein if one entity has been able to reduce the carbon dioxide emission, okay, let's suppose this particular entity was allowed to produce 100 units of carbon dioxide emission, but it emitted only 80. So it would get a credit certificate in this respect, and it can sell this to another entity B, which might have breached its carbon dioxide emission limit. Okay, so that is how it led the foundation of carbon border market. When it comes to this particular scheme, it is being administered by Bureau of Energy Efficiency, and it is this entity, Bureau of Energy Efficiency, which is going to set the targets, and this is the entity which would be issuing the carbon credit certificates to a particular entity, like in this case entity A, which has not breached its limit of CO2 emission. And when it comes to the trading of carbon credit certificates, this would be taking place via Central Electricity Regulatory Commission. How it is going to operate? So it is going to function through a compliance mechanism. So the entities have to meet the greenhouse gas emission intensity targets. Overachievers can earn credits just like this company A, and offset mechanism, that is company B, who has breached the limit, they have to get the credits from companies like A. It operates on a cap and trade model. That means for every entity, the Bureau of Energy Efficiency would be coming up with the cap beyond which it cannot, emit more CO2. And the obligated entities can reduce emission beyond their target. They earn the carbon credit certificates just like this company A, and one carbon credit certificate actually implies 1 ton of CO2. which can be traded on power exchanges. And this exchange would be taking place via this particular entity, that is Central Electricity Regulatory Commission. That's all that we need to know with respect to this particular topic. Let's move on to the next one. Now, sadly, we are witnessing an Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And that is the reason the WHO head has gone to visit the Congo city of Bunia, wherein we are witnessing this particular outbreak. This particular topic you can associate with the prelim segment diseases or the science portion. Now, when it comes to Ebola virus, it is basically a viral hemorrhagic fever. It was first identified in 1976 near the Ebola river, and that is the reason the name is Ebola virus. It was, at that time also, it was found in the Democratic Republic of Congo, wherein currently we are witnessing another outbreak. It is caused by viruses which belong to Ortho-Ebola virus genus, which is Flaviviridae family, and 3 different viruses are known to cause this Ebola disease outbreak. That is Ebola virus, Sudan virus, and Bundibugyo virus. Sorry if I'm unable to pronounce the name properly. Now, when it comes to the transmission, firstly, it would begin through zoonotic spillover. That means from animals, a human would get this particular disease. And which is the animal which is considered to be the carrier of this particular virus? That is the fruit bat. And then it would be followed by human to human transmission via the bodily fluids. What are the symptoms? So, you will have fever, fatigue, muscle pain, headache, and sore throat. And why it is a concern? Because the fatality rate is quite high. It is around 50%. When you talk about the vaccines, we have the vaccines and the treatment available to treat only one kind of virus, that is your Ebola virus, this strain. We don't have the virus to deal with Sudan virus as well as this particular strain, which is leading to this current outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So how do we treat the patients? By providing intensive supportive care. Now, when it comes to this Democratic Republic of Congo, there are certain countries which are close to this, that is South Sudan and Uganda, and there are high chances that people might get infected in these 2 countries also. So that is all that we need to know with respect to this particular topic. Let's move on to the last topic of today's analysis. Now, recently the government has come up with a great initiative, that is Samadhan Didi. What is this Samadhan Didi? Let's try and understand. This is something that you can associate with the polity section. Now, the Samadhan Didi is an AI chatbot which has been developed by the Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances in collaboration with the Bhashini, which is a AI powered tool. Now, when you talk about the Bhashini app, it can support 22 scheduled languages. So, how this Samadhan Didi is going to work? So, any citizen can raise a concern against any government department or a ministry. I don't need to tell to that AI chatbot, that is Samadhan Didi, that which ministry or department I'm talking about. I just need to tell my concern to Samadhan Didi in whatever language I speak. It is the task of this AI chatbot that it would figure out after it would ask me certain relevant questions to clarify that the concern relate to which ministry or which department of the government. This has to be figured out by Samadhan Didi that my concern is related to which ministry or which department. Okay, so the task of identifying the appropriate ministry of department fall under this ambit of Samadhan Didi. Okay, so it would be asking me certain relevant questions to clarify this thing, and it would automatically identify the appropriate ministry and the department to which the concern is associated with. And the aim of this particular thing is to make public grievance redressal simpler, more accessible, and truly multilingual. Because as we know, just like Bhashini can support 22 scheduled languages, similar thing is going to be with Samadhan Didi. It can, deal with multiple languages which are spoken across India. That would actually revolutionize when it comes to the public grievance redressal that we have in case of India. That's all that we need to know when it comes to today's analyst. Quiz would be coming right up next, so don't forget to practice the quiz and please check your knowledge. Till then, keep smiling, keep learning. Have a great day, all of you.